Good morning, everyone. So welcome to lesson 3 of our video series, looking at employability skills. So today we're joined again by Rob Knowles of Cubit Limited, and we've got Caroline Alton as well from Reflect Recruitment with us. So today we're going to be looking at personal statements, a little bit about application forms and the process of those as well. But before we get started, Caroline, can I ask you to just give us a bit of an introduction to yourself and also the company you work for?
Yes, certainly. Hello, my name is Caroline Alton. A bit of background on myself is I've had 22 years in the motor trade. I started as a salesperson, and then I progressed on to run their European customer services. So I've had quite a different sort of career, really, mostly sales based. I worked for Reflect Recruitment for 4 years. I initially sort of said to my boss, I need to come in here as being a manager. He went, no, Caroline, that's not going to happen. He said, you start from the bottom, you work up, and I decide whether or not I'm going to promote you. As I say, that did happen. About a year and a half, I'm now the manager of the Lincoln office.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Caroline. That's interesting, isn't it? I think sometimes we do try and bite off more than we can chew to start with, and we do have to learn to work our way up, don't we? So I think that's quite a valuable lesson there as well. So great. We'll move on to personal statements then. So these students are probably going to be thinking about writing a personal statement potentially for university, which is going to be an important part of that process. But also moving forward when they come to do job applications, I think a personal statement is also really, really important as well. So, Caroline, I'm going to come to you first. I guess from your perspective, what makes, and you do this and you read these, I suppose you read CVs and applications quite a lot. So what makes a good personal statement? What sort of things would you suggest a young person tries to think about when they go ahead and try writing one of these?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a firm believer that with regards to CVs, there has to be a certain layout. And I like to have 4 or 5 lines of a personal statement at the top of a CV. So go with all your personal details, first of all, who you are, your email address, telephone number, etc., etc. Not too much detail on there either. And then go on to personal statements. So I think as a young person, you've maybe not been out in the workplace previously. I think you need to be thinking about what you've done, as you progress through your school career. Academically wise, what can you bring to that business? And it really is that level really to sort of sell yourself. I mean, I know that I've said sort of 4 or 5 lines. If anybody fancied doing a bigger statement, absolutely great. But the last thing that you want is for an employer to get bored with reading about you. And so it needs to be short, sharp, and very punchy.
So Rob, I'm going to come to you. I mean, what's your thoughts on a personal statement? I mean, these students, I think Caroline's quite nicely summed it up from an employer's perspective, and when you're going for a job and a CV. What about potentially for university? Would you have any suggestions potentially to consider there?
I would believe that whether you're going for a job or the university, the rules, the generic rules apply. So everything that Caroline's just said. I'd also try and consider the reader. So the reader, whether it's an employer, a busy employer who's perhaps not as focused as Caroline would be and not as a professional recruiter, needs to get something in front of them that's going to capture their attention. It's short and it's sharp. So make it nice and easy to read. I don't mean Janet and John. You don't have to do 3-word sentences, but just short, focused sentences are good. Forgive me. that was somebody at our door there. So if that's a BT engineer, I might be switching over to my phone in a minute.
It's all right.
Coming back in to answer your question. So short and sharp, but also try and capture them by using a little bit of power words. So don't just say I captained the school football team. Say I successfully captained the school football team for 3 seasons. And if there's an achievement on the back of that during which we won a local cup, great, add that to it. So try and it's almost like Nick said in the last interview, you get one chance to make a first impression. This might be your first impression on paper or on screen. So your words do count, absolutely. So whether it's university or employer, I think the same things apply. Short and sharp, and try and impress the reader.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, isn't it? And not just writing almost a statement. I know it's called a personal statement, but almost writing, you know, captain the football team. It's almost trying to emphasize what your impact was on that captaincy, isn't it? So you mentioned there about, you know, if someone is a captain of the football team, it's, you know, what impact did that individual have in relation to the success, I guess, as well. So I think that's a really, really important point to note. So I'm going to come on to a little bit about transferable skills, because I think, again, when you come in to write a personal statement, potentially you've not had that experience in the workplace or necessarily taking part in various things. So I guess how would you approach, you know, transferable skills, and how would you suggest a young person tries to think about the skills that they've learned, whether it's through academic school or whether it's through volunteering or taking part in sport? How would you suggest that they try and put that into a statement? You know, how could they capture some of that information, do you think? Caroline, I'll come to you if that's all right.
I think you've got to really sort of think about what you've been doing at school, any sort of, as I say, any achievements that you've actually gained while you've actually been there, that's going to be able to be something that's transferable onto the your working life, fresh ideas that you can actually bring to the employer. You know, I call it new blood. New blood, I think, in a business is absolutely fantastic. To have a young person go into a business and have all these new fresh ideas straight from school, having had the education, I think is a real bonus to a company.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Robbie dropped out there. I think we talked a bit about, you know, bringing fresh ideas being quite important as well. And I think that's something we've spoken about, you know, making sure that a young person puts in those transferable skills and what they've learned. But I think personality in there, it is a personal statement after all, and making sure that they get their personality across is really important as well. And trying to get the employer, whoever's reading, to buy into you as an individual. Rob, do you think that's quite a fair thing to mention?
Very much so. So I've had ranges of conversations with employers, not just in this role as an enterprise advisor, but you know, in my general sort of going about with work, and they range with, if you like, on one end of the extreme, there are employers who said, you know what, I can't be bothered with young kids today. They can't X, Y, and Z, and they throw kind of lots of lazy criticisms at them, part of which is their fault in the sense that they won't connect. And you get the other end, and they're very enlightened, and they take a lot of time. And when I ask these people who are enlightened, if my words, who really take care, so, well, what makes a difference with the person or people in front of you? And they kind of muse, well, actually, yeah, I've got to choose between 3 or 4 people. On paper, they all look the same. They've got the same qualifications. They're roughly the same age. It's who steps up, who makes a difference, who will fit in. And of course, it's for the role. So sometimes you want somebody who's very quiet, shy, very thorough, attention to detail, and that comes across. Or you want the more, if you're in sales, for example, you might want the more outgoing kind of chatty person.
Yeah, I think it is. And I understand what you're saying there in terms of making sure that what you're writing fits what you think the company is looking for, I suppose, as well.
I am a believer in CVs being tweaked for each role. Don't ever send out just a normal generic CV. There's no point in it. And I think you've got to be able to pick out with your personal statement, what does that company actually want? What are they actually looking for? And make sure that your CV is, as I say, tweaked to that actual particular role. And it will make such a difference.
Yeah, definitely. I think that comes the same with a university a personal statement, doesn't it? You know, if you're applying for a particular course, you know, what is it you think that course is looking for as an individual, and making sure that you write your personal statement to fit what you think is their requirements as well, I think is really, really important.
I do actually think that putting that and also your hobbies, I think, is very important on a CV. Because so many times I have looked through a CV and then I've looked at the hobbies, and their hobbies can probably be relative to maybe another role that I have. And that's happened quite a lot. You know, say for instance, sort of somebody's into, I don't know, maybe classic cars or sort of something like that. I have several clients that, work within classic cars, want somebody who's got that sort of interest. So hobbies, achievements, yeah, very important.
I think that's really important. And it kind of comes on to our kind of key takeaways. And I think going to pick up on what you just said there, Rob, is really sell yourself and, do it genuinely, obviously, but this is your opportunity. I suppose similar to an interview, which we'll speak about next time, it is your opportunity to sell yourself, isn't it, and get your foot in the door. So I think that's really important. So yeah, come to you, Caroline. How would you kind of sum up then just your main couple of points to give these young people to finish on personal statements?
This is basically how I think that a CV should be laid out. So first of all, your personal statement, and then underneath some bullet points that you're really, really good at. So say, for instance, you're applying for a role where your employer is going to get a lot of CVs. He doesn't have time to maybe read through that personal statement. So let's put those bullet points in there as well, so we can have a quick look, so that you go into the yes pile as opposed to the no pile, and he can look at you again later on and read through all your personal statement. And then, as I say, just any sort of achievements that you've attained, and also sort of, as I say, hobbies, very important on those as well.
Great. Rob, yourself, last closing bit from you.
Just remember and be under no illusion, this is a competition. You're not the only person striving to get this job. You can do nothing about the other candidates, so just focus on yourself. It's okay to be, I'm going to use the word selfish, but in a very positive way. You've got to sell yourself, and you've got to use all the tools at your disposal, all the people that can help you, and all the tips and tricks that you can bring to bear to achieve what you're going to achieve, which presumably is an interview, the next stage.
Great stuff. Well, thanks very much for your... sorry, Caroline, go on.
Mind awfully if I just added something?
Yeah.
If I was going to go and look for a job, this is how I would basically go about it. I would send my CV, as you do, over Indeed or sort of some other platform. Then what I would do is if it's a company, I'd give the company a call. Hi, sent over my CV. I'm having a few technical issues. Could you tell me, please, have you received it? Number one, you'll usually get to speak to the person who's actually got the job advertised. And yeah, actually great. I've got your CV. Lovely. Thank you very much. Would you mind awfully if I gave you a call back in 2 or 3 days just to get some feedback on that CV, just to see what you thought? I haven't sent many of them out, and I just want to sort of know really your feedback. I personally have to say I think something like that is such a difference, because so many people click the button and then wait. Do something proactive about it. Give them a call. See if they've got it.
Yeah, it shows that kind of, as you mentioned, that proactivity, doesn't it?
I do know of an instance. It's a friend of mine who hired a couple of young lads from a local school, and one of them, this guy, he was caught, and John jokes, he said he was loitering. He said, "Hey lad, what are you doing?" He said, "Well, I'm applying for a job here. I just want to have a look round. I want to make sure it's where I want to work." And he was sort of cheeky in a way.
Yeah.
What it did was, he did get the job on his merits. It wasn't just that. But John thought, well, he's taking initiative here. Why not? Now the other lad that got the job did, in a more subtle way, he kind of asked people who he knew, who knew people who worked at that company. So he got a little bit of insight from it, and he was able to relay that during the interview to say, well, how did you know that? Well, I did a bit of homework.
I think
it does help. You've got to set yourself apart.
Yes.
I think that's a really good point to close, isn't it? Take the initiative, being proactive.
Definitely.
I think if you're able to put that into your application, your CV, and your personal statement, and also the process you go through to try and securing that job, I think that's a really important factor to take into it.
Yes.
Well, thanks very much for you both, and we'll catch up again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.